have team members who do both virtual parties and live cooking shows. He has personally sold over $500,000 in products in 3 years. Personally recruited 140 consultants. That's probably more now, since that was a couple weeks ago we put those numbers in there. And his organization has 33 directors and above, and over 550 consultants. He earned the Disney Level 2 Elite trip at the end of April this year and qualified for Paris in that same month, in April. His organization has already sold, you said it was 3 million. I didn't have time to change the slide. He was super excited about that. 3 million. So he hit the $3 million mark, you guys. That's a big deal. Right? He's had a 93% increase over last year and recruited actually over 500. Was it now 512?
512.
512. All right. And that is an 88% increase. He was paid a title 6 out of 8 months, which is 75% of the time. So I'm super excited for you guys to hear from Mr. Steve Drapalski.
Hi, everybody. So I'm super excited to chat with you today for a bit about a few topics that I'm personally passionate about, which you'll sense a theme here during the next day and a half. Leading by example and teaching your leaders to be paid as by the 15th of each month. So what our Rockstar organization was able to accomplish in just the last 9 months, going from a senior executive team to a national team from October to May, was truly rooted in these 2 practices. I'll also cover 3 additional practices that are key to our success. So third is the importance of teaching my leaders to be strategic and intentional with their schedule and time each month. Fourth, teaching my leaders to know how to track their team's performance, which is so critical in this, any kind of promotion like this. And then lastly, which you've heard before, but just to reiterate, the power of one. So essentially, I'm constantly promoting the idea of teamwork and monthly activity among my leaders. But I'm also giving them the tools to work smarter and not harder to do so. I knew that if I wanted to take our executive team to National 5 Conference, I would need to get better habits in place among my existing leaders, all while then setting the expectation for those new leaders coming into the fold that we don't work 2 minimums. We do not, okay? And you may be wondering, where do I even start, okay? And you may hear that from your own leaders. Honestly, to keep it real, because that's how I will always be, it starts with you. It started with me. We can always be setting a better example for our leaders. And your own personal monthly activity and the teamwork shown from your own personal team results each month is what will drive your leaders to aspire to have what you have. Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, and this is something some of you may have heard before, but I've become so passionate about this in general. The speed of the leader, right, the speed of the leader determines the pace of the pack, okay? I read an article several months ago that compared the world of direct selling and leadership to that of the relationship between a conductor and his or her orchestra. When I previously spoke about this before, I couched it in regard to a director and his or her downline, but it is so applicable to us at the executive level and our downline leaders as well. And being a former theater nerd, this comparison really spoke to me when I stumbled upon it, and I really think it informs our role as leaders and creating this teamwork and monthly activity culture that we want for our teams. This article essentially breaks it out into 8 steps. First of all, conductors start with a plan. Okay, they start with a musical score and a clear idea of how it should sound. Only then do they attempt to recreate it in real time, this musical vision of theirs, right, and share it with others. In this case, you moving up the career plan, or something you want to change or influence in your business, and communicating that to your teams. The conductor recruits the best players. Here's the thing, great conductors attract great players, and mediocre ones do the same. Okay, the very best players want to work for the very best conductors because like attracts like. Third, the conductor is visible so that everyone can see him or her. The conductor stands on a platform, right? So that every single member of the orchestra, in this case your leadership teams, can see him or her. This is the only way the orchestra can stay in alignment with each player starting and stopping at the appropriate time. 4, and this is hard for me. Many of you know me, I'm somebody that is more about just do the work versus anything happening here. The conductor leads with his or her heart. Great conductors are swept up in the music, right? They are passionate. They don't just play with their head, they play with their heart, and you can read it all over their face, okay? You can sense it in their movement, right? They are fully present and playing full out, and they are truly invested in the work they are doing. 5, the conductor delegates, right? How many of us struggle with divvying up responsibility to other people, to our leaders, right? The conductor delegates and focuses on what only he or she can do. The conductor doesn't do everything, okay? He or she doesn't sell the tickets. He or she doesn't participate usually in the preliminaries. He doesn't even make sure that the orchestra is in tune. The concert master does that. He or she stays off stage until it is time for him or her to do only what they can do, which is lead. 6, the conductor is aware of his or her gestures and the impact they have. A conductor can't afford to make an unintentional gesture. Everything means something. The flick of a wrist, right? The raising of an eyebrow, the closing of the eyes during a movement, they all have meaning. And a good conductor can't afford to be careless with his or her public demeanor. And I struggle with that too sometimes, okay? 7, the conductor keeps his back to the audience. Conductors are aware of the audience, right? But their focus is on the players and their performance. The only time the conductor stops to acknowledge the audience is before the playing begins and after it's finished. Otherwise, the rest, guys, is noise. Think about comparing yourself to other people. That is noise, okay? Other than that, he or she is focused on delivering an outstanding product through serving other people. In this case, your players, your teams, your leaders, right? And 8, the conductor shares the spotlight. When the concert is over, right, and the audience is clapping, the conductor turns to the audience, yes, and takes a bow. But a good conductor, an excellent conductor, immediately turns to the orchestra and invites them to stand as well. He or she shares the glory with his colleagues, his or her, noticing that without them, the music, the product, would not be possible, okay? To me, these concepts embody exactly what it means to lead by example in terms of action and mindset to create that, that culture you want for your team. We as leaders, as executive leaders, we create a vision so clear for our leadership teams to follow, to chase after, right? We provide them the tools to be successful. We actually do what we want them to do and don't just talk about it. And we maintain a positive attitude and stay above the line when our leaders insist on getting dirty and playing in the mud. Okay? So let's talk some specifics about leading by example. You heard a little bit from this from Love, but I'm going to go into it a little further. If you want your leaders to work, you have to work. That's it, okay? Your personal performance each month should set the bar for how high your leaders can reach and stretch themselves to get more from their business more quickly. So what does this look like? If you're an all-virtual leader, you should aim to book 16, you heard this before, those 12 shows we have left will hit 200. That leaves you at about $2,500 in sales. Now, while directors are required to submit only $750 of that $5,000 paid at title amount, and I know that many of us here in this room sell far more than that, but I'm thinking our leaders here, right? You and your leaders should not work to minimums. Your goal each month at a minimum, and what you should teach to your teams, should be to submit $2,500 in sales at the least, okay? And if you're doing a mixture of in-home and virtual shows, you should book 8 virtual and hold 6. And you can kind of see here what that total sales number looks like based on averages. And then if they're all in-home, that whole idea of 8 will make you great. That mentality still applies to hit at least that 2,500 as well. So the good news is that your averages are probably much higher than this, right? But your newer leaders may not be. So these are conservative numbers. These are numbers you need to condition them to work towards as they are, growing as a leader. So when you are submitting, when your leaders are submitting $2,500 in sales at a minimum each month, you are leading by example and inspiring your leaders to do more. This will also put you in front of enough people so that you have a larger pool of people to share the opportunity with, and therefore move up the career plan. And you all know this, right? But are you doing it? Think about it. Are you doing it? Are you actually doing the things you want your leaders to do? or your teams, okay? In terms of recruiting, your goal at a minimum should be to recruit 2 people each month, and I highly suggest you set your sights higher, right? Because when we do, we will likely hit at least the minimum. I set my goal each month for recruiting to be 5, because as we know, we will recruit 1 person for every 12 to 15 we share the opportunity with. And I personally want to re-promote myself every month, and I hope that behavior trickles down and inspires my leaders to do the same. So, let's move to best practice number 2. I have always focused on teaching my leaders to be paid as by the 15th of the month. Now, this is, there's a real art to the terminology here, and so here's my suggestion, and this is from talking with Donna and a couple others. The way you talk to your leaders about being, is the term paid as, right? Because when they are meeting the qualifications, they are being paid as their title that they work to achieve. The idea of qualifying as is something that is a great way to unpack what the team in general is working on doing every month so that we are qualifying collectively as a unit, your $50, your $550, etc., to meet our director structure every month. So just to be clear about that. So the best practice I follow, and I've taught my leaders to follow, is the goal of being paid as by the 15th of the month, okay? Now, does it always happen? Of course not. But like with anything, when we lead by example, others are likely to follow. So this is a graphic in the vein of all things Disney, of me recognizing those teams who are green by the 15th. They each have their own set of Mickey ears with their team name on it, and I tag everybody in the team, like Love had said, who has sold anything. A $45 order is important to having your team go green, so I want to make sure that every single person knows that they are a part of making that happen. Okay? To help leaders be paid by the 15th, okay, best practice number 3 comes into play. Be strategic and intentional with your scheduling. So let me use the example of an all-virtual leader booking those 16 parties a month. In the end, 12 end up probably actually holding or happening. I stress to my leaders the importance of front-loading their calendars in the first 2 weeks with 4 parties each of those weeks. And this is a mess, so I'll explain this because I have like doctor handwriting. Okay. So by doing this, they have a clear picture of where their team stands and how close they are to being paid as by the 15th of the month. So if you can see here, in the first, the 5th and the 12th, it says Beth James virtual party, Sam Smith virtual party, etc. So I'm basically listing out the 4 parties each week, and then you see we close our parties on Wednesdays, and so it articulates where they are to close them there. So at that point, by the 15th or the middle of the month, it's either wrapped up, they're close, or, and this is rare for us because of this practice, we are in crisis mode, and we need to work together to salvage the month, okay? Now, in the event that crisis mode is on the horizon, you as the leader need to have a plan B before you need a plan B, okay? Be proactive in understanding the habits of your leaders. Know who your weak links are, okay? I currently offer 15-minute check-ins each month with all of my leaders via a phone call, but you better believe that I've had an extra 15 minutes in for those individuals that unfortunately, and for whatever reason, often struggle on that bus every month, okay? I make sure I have learned how best to communicate with them so that when I'm sharing criticism and solutions, we get the best possible return on investment from our conversation. Now, my leaders obviously are encouraged to schedule parties every single week. But in this 3rd week, we really focus on being intentional on making sure they plan to do the following. So spend time working with their team members on next month's bookings. Spend time being intentional about recruiting conversations and identifying leads. Spend time booking additional parties for that next month if they need more. And strategically planning to submit shows perhaps in the next month, okay? So let me go and explain on this next slide here with the calendar. Okay, so here you can see this 3rd week. So the shows close on Wednesday, Thursday. I usually will end up wrapping up, submitting things, not actually Wednesday. And then here you see personal team coaching calls, non-performers, 12 to 4. Obviously I have a couple other parties starting, personal team coaching calls, performers, 12 to 5, follow up with recruits, chunk of time there. And then Tuesday, make contacts and work to book for August, etc. And then even on Wednesday, there are additional personal team coaching calls for performers, because usually we have more of those than not, hopefully 12 to 4. So you kind of see how you want to make sure that you're scheduling the time to work those areas that specific week. So I've taught them to schedule those remaining 4 parties the last week of the month, which you can see here written on 7/26. Then they can be strategic as to whether or not they submit them in the current month or on the first of the next month. And here's what's made a huge difference. The goal is for each leader to go into the next month with $1,000 or more in sales, okay? To drive their business versus run to catch up to it. Now this is, of course, we talk about what are your income goals and needs for that month, and so if they have a certain thing they need to pay or et cetera, then of course that's where that lives. But ideally they will do this practice. To show you how well this works, this graphic shows you that more than half of my leaders, back when we were working on this promotion, were already green by the 11th of the month during month 3 of our senior executive director qualification. So that was an amazing feeling, okay? Wouldn't you love to see this happen in your organization, okay? Half of our directors, almost half, to meet national structure, were paid by the 15th of this month. So when you teach this practice, they get into the groove and eventually it becomes habitual in a sense. So now to my 4th point, teach my leaders how to track their performance. Knowing my leaders' numbers and teaching them to understand how their teams regularly perform made all the difference in our qualifying months for both of our promotions being wrapped up well before the end of the month. So in this case, for national, we were done month 3 on the 20th of the month. Now, I'm not saying that to listen, clapping, I'm just saying it works, right? 10 days early, okay? This is why that 3rd week I mentioned is so important. As I promoted directors personally and saw my other lines grow, I knew I needed to help my leaders understand what paid as really means visually, okay? And how it would be easier than they thought to track whether or not they were a numbers person. Judy says this all the time, this business is from here, but the numbers don't lie. So we can talk about this all the time, but I'm more focused on numbers often, more than not. So I created this graphic for you here just to see how I impacted to my leaders. But as our leader team grew, I would actually share what it could look like on Zoom calls so that they could make it their own, right? So this is kind of like a template of sorts. So when a leader promoted, I would talk about how they needed to look at their team each month like a web. Okay, they are the circle at the center where much of where the activity is concentrated, right? So in this case, the sales to be paid as submitting $2,500 plus in sales a month. And there are 5 at the time of promotion, which of course will grow. Thinner threads casting off in different directions, which are the 5 individuals who help the team to promote. So in that 3rd week to plan for the next month, I would encourage them to reach out to their consultants to poll how many parties they had slated for the next month. As a new team, obviously the data a leader could pull from month to month won't be as dependable starting out, but by month 3, the leader will have a 3-month history of how their team was consistently performing. When a new leader promotes, I show them how to find all of their statistics and those of their team and consultant connection on the performance tracker. So for example, my director Kathy has a team of 5. Kathy's in her 4th month as a leader. Her team consists of Mary, Samantha, Jen, Christy, and Barb. Barb disappeared after month 1. Barb was a kidnapper. She left, okay? So while Kathy might include her on a thread, we can't really count on her for sales. So she would have a 0 next to the dollar amount line and a 0 next to the party number line. Kathy checked in with the other ladies last month, right, in preparation. She did this during week 3. Mary, Samantha, and Jen all have 2 parties, and Christy has 5. So to be conservative, I have taught Kathy to assume that when a consultant tells her they have however many number of shows, I like to look at book 4, add 1 more in terms of booking parties, book 4, lose 1 more perhaps, based on all the things, right? So this is why the graphic here shows 1 party for Mary, because she said that she had 2, right? Samantha and Jen, and then Christy will hopefully likely submit 4. And this, of course, increases the more parties that they book in terms of how you account for the attrition of what parties may not hold. So really, Kathy believes that Mary, Samantha, and Jen will submit 1 party and Christy will submit 4. So Kathy, because I've taught her this, she then pulls up the show average of all of her working consultants. She puts the show average for each person in the dollar amount spot, the show average, right, and the new show the new show total numbers in the party spot. And so Mary has a show average of 400, Samantha 525, Jen 451, and Christy 345. So after talking with her team members in that third week, Kathy is able to estimate that her team will contribute roughly $27.50 to the team's paid as total needed for the next month. So does that make sense, right? So you have a real clear picture, and then you can say, okay, well, sometimes Mary says she has shows, and then she doesn't always submit the show, so I probably need to book another party to account for the fact that that happens with Mary. Okay, so really understanding individually how your people perform. And then once you grow bigger, empowering your first generation to understand how to do that as well, because we can't do all the things all the time, although we'd like to, okay? Okay, so on the left here, the easiest way to find their show average is to go to the Overview tab and click on Performance Details and Current Month, and then you want to go to the Sales section. On the left, you'll see KFP shows, which of course are the cooking shows. Below that, you'll see catalog shows, which are the virtual shows. The left side of this section gives you the month-to-date info, and the right side gives you the year-to-date. The show average you can see is on the right, and you will want them to use the year-to-date numbers for a more true and conservative number. Kathy is then able to look at her own schedule and numbers and see what the holes are, if any, and have plenty of time, those 2 remaining weeks, right, to set them up more strongly for that next month as needed. Now, of course, as a new director team grows and welcomes new consultants, this practice becomes a little bit impossible, but it's a great way to start a new director thinking strategically about their month. Now, of course, we want our new consultants to submit as much as possible, as quickly as possible in their first 90 days to take advantage of the amazing rewards program, right? But eventually, as they graduate out of this program, I'm conditioning my consultants, senior consultants, and team leaders to practice this same behavior above. Front-loading their calendar in the first 2 weeks of the month, with the remainder in the 4th. I counted that they'll be earning the selling incentive much more quickly and getting a bigger paycheck earlier in the month. Ideally wanting them to hit that top tier $4,000 level ASAP as quickly as possible. And that's something I share on the very first onboarding call with a new consultant. Obviously, when the consultants of our leaders are submitting sales earlier by the 15th, the team will go green more quickly and your leaders will be paid as much sooner. And you will have to worry less, okay? Not to mention, when you do this with your consultants after their 90 days, you're going to be conditioning and really promoting the kind of leaders you want down the line who understand what it means to be strategic with their business already, with a much smoother transition to helping them understand the importance of being paid as and how the numbers actually work. So the last thing I wanted to expand upon is the power of one. So I run 6-week director bound programs. I have ever since January of 18, I think. And on the last call, the 6th call of my program, I discussed this concept. So by the end of my program, we'll have some people who did promote during it, some who maybe recruited a team member or 2, and some who are still at square one. No matter where we end, I stress to them what is possible if they book just one more show and talk to just one more person about the opportunity and spend just one more hour a day working their business. So if your show average is 600, at the consultant base level commission rate, they're going to be earning an extra $100 a month. If you ask those 12 to 15 people about the business and God knows, asking just one more person might get that person working to promote closer to a yes and closer to their promotion. And if they spend just one more hour a day working their business, I tell them to think about how many contacts you will have made and the guests you will be providing added value customer service for. And the last thing I end with is saying to them that successful people do the things that unsuccessful people don't do. Are you hungry for just one more? Essentially, this mindset is then instilled in them as they eventually promote and hopefully guides their future actions as leaders and as they support their teams. To wrap up, the topics I mentioned are truly what allowed us to experience such success in such a short time, but as I mentioned, it truly starts with you.